The koala, inaccurately, koala bear, Phascolarctos cinereus, is an arboreal herbivorous marsupial native to Australia. It is the only extant representative of the family Phascolarctidae, and its closest living relatives are the wombats. The koala is found in coastal areas of the mainland's eastern and southern regions, inhabiting Queensland, New South Wales, Victoria, and South Australia. It is easily recognizable by its stout, tailless body and large head with round, fluffy ears and large, spoon-shaped nose. The koala has a body length of 60 to 85 cm, 24 to 33 in, and weighs 4 to 15 kg, 9 to 33 lb. Fur color ranges from silver gray to chocolate brown. Koalas from the northern populations are typically smaller and lighter in color than their counterparts further south. These populations possibly are separate subspecies, but this is disputed. Koalas typically inhabit open eucalyptus woodland, as the leaves of these trees make up most of their diet. Because this eucalypt diet has limited nutritional and caloric content, koalas are largely sedentary and sleep up to 20 hours a day. They are asocial animals, and bonding exists only between mothers and dependent offspring. Adult males communicate with loud bellows that intimidate rivals and attract mates. Males mark their presence with secretions from scent glands located on their chests. Being marsupials, koalas give birth to underdeveloped young that crawl into their mother's pouches, where they stay for the first 6 to 7 months of their lives. These young koalas, known as joeys, are fully weaned around a year old. Koalas have few natural predators and parasites, but are threatened by various pathogens, such as Chlamydiaceae bacteria and the koala retrovirus. Because of its distinctive appearance, the koala is recognized worldwide as a symbol of Australia. They were hunted by indigenous Australians and depicted in myths and cave art for millennia. The first recorded encounter between a European and a koala was in 1798, and an image of the animal was published in 1810 by naturalist George Perry. Botanist Robert Brown wrote the first detailed scientific description of the koala in 1814, although his work remained unpublished for 180 years. Popular artist John Gould illustrated and described the koala, introducing the species to the general British public. Further details about the animal's biology were revealed in the 19th century by several English scientists. Koalas are listed as a vulnerable species by the International Union for Conservation of Nature. Among the many threats to their existence are habitat destruction caused by agriculture, urbanization, droughts, and associated bushfires, some related to climate change. In February of 2022, the koala was officially listed as endangered in the Australian Capital Territory, New South Wales, and Queensland. The first written reference to the koala was recorded by John Price, servant of John Hunter, the Governor of New South Wales. Price encountered the Culawine on the 26th of January 1798, during an expedition to the Blue Mountains, although his account was not published until nearly a century later in historical records of Australia. In 1802, French-born explorer Francis Louis Berrelier encountered the animal when his two Aboriginal guides, returning from a hunt, brought back 2 koala feet they were intending to eat. Berrelier preserved the appendages and sent them and his notes to Hunter's successor, Philip Gidley King, who forwarded them to Joseph Banks. Similar to Price, Berrelier's notes were not published until 1897. Reports of the first capture of a live koala appeared in the Sydney Gazette in August 1803. Within a few weeks, Flinders astronomer James Inman purchased a specimen pair for live shipment to Joseph Banks in England. They were described as somewhat larger than the wombat. These encounters helped provide the impetus for King to commission the artist John Lewin to paint watercolors of the animal. Lewin painted 3 pictures, one of which was subsequently made into a print that was reproduced in Georges Cuvier's Le Regni Animal, The Animal Kingdom, first published in 1817, and several European works on natural history. Botanist Robert Brown was the first to write a detailed scientific description of the koala in 1803, based on a female specimen captured near what is now Mount Kembla in the Illawarra region of New South Wales. Austrian botanical illustrator Ferdinand Bauer drew the animal's skull, throat, feet, and paws. Brown's work remained unpublished and largely unnoticed, however, as his field books and notes remained in his possession until his death, when they were bequeathed to the British Museum, Natural History, in London. They were not identified until 1994, while Bauer's koala watercolors were not published until 1989. British surgeon Everard Home included details of the koala based on eyewitness accounts of William Patterson, who had befriended Brown and Bauer during their stay in New South Wales. Home, who in 1808 published his report in the journal Philosophical Transactions of the Royal Society, gave the animal the scientific name Didelphus. The first living koala in Britain arrived in 1881, purchased by the Zoological Society of London. As related by prosecutor to the Society, William Alexander Forbes, the animal suffered an accidental demise when the heavy lid of a washstand fell on it and it was unable to free itself. Forbes used the opportunity to dissect the fresh female specimen, thus was able to provide explicit anatomical details on the female reproductive system, the brain, and the liver, parts not previously described by Owen, who had access only to preserved specimens. Scottish embryologist William Caldwell, well known in scientific circles for determining the reproductive mechanism of the platypus, described the uterine development of the koala in 1884, and used the new information to convincingly place the koala and the monotremes into an evolutionary time frame. The koala is well known worldwide and is a major draw for Australian zoos and wildlife parks. It has been featured in advertisements, games, cartoons, and as soft toys. It benefited the national tourism industry by over an estimated $1 billion in 1998, a figure that has since grown. In 1997, half of the visitors to Australia, especially those from Korea, Japan, and Taiwan, sought out zoos and wildlife parks. About 75% of European and Japanese tourists placed the koala at the top of their list of animals to see. According to biologist Stephen Jackson, if you were to take a straw poll of the animal most closely associated with Australia, it's a fair bet that the koala would come out marginally in front of the kangaroo. Factors that contribute to the koala's enduring popularity include its childlike body proportions and teddy bear-like face. The koala is featured in the Dreamtime stories and mythology of indigenous Australians. The Tarawal people believed that the animal helped row the boat that brought them to the continent. Another myth tells of how a tribe killed a koala and used its long intestines to create a bridge for people from other parts of the world. This narrative highlights the koala's status as a game animal and the length of its intestines. Several stories tell of how the koala lost its tail. In one, a kangaroo cuts it off to punish the koala for being lazy and greedy. Tribes in both Queensland and Victoria regarded the koala as a wise animal and sought its advice. Bidjara-speaking people credited the koala for turning barren lands into lush forests. The animal is also depicted in rock carvings, though not as much as some other species. Early European settlers in Australia considered the koala to be a prowling sloth-like animal with a fierce and menacing look. At the beginning of the 20th century, the koala's reputation took a more positive turn, largely due to its growing popularity and depiction in several widely circulated children's stories. It is featured in Ethel Peteley's 1899 book Dot and the Kangaroo, in which it is portrayed as the funny native bear. Artist Norman Lindsay depicted a more anthropomorphic koala in the Bulletin cartoons, starting in 1904. This character also appeared as Bunyip Bluegum in Lindsay's 1918 book The Magic Pudding. Perhaps the most famous fictional koala is Blinky Bill. Created by Dorothy Wall in 1933, the character appeared in several books and has been the subject of films, TV series, merchandise, and a 1986 environmental song by John Williamson. The first Australian stamp featuring a koala was issued by the Commonwealth in 1930. A television ad campaign for Australia's national airline Qantas, starting in 1967 and running for several decades, featured a live koala voiced by Howard Morris, who complained that too many tourists were coming to Australia and concluded, "I hate Qantas." The series has been ranked among the greatest commercials of all time. The song, Ode to a Koala Bear, appears on the B-side of the 1983 Paul McCartney-Michael Jackson duet single Say Say Say. A koala is the main character in Hanna-Barbera's The Quickie Koala Show and Nippon Animation's Noozles, both of which were animated cartoons of the early 1980s. Food products shaped like the koala include the Caramello Koala chocolate bar and the bite-sized cookie snack Koala's March. Dadswell's Bridge in Victoria features a tourist complex shaped like a giant koala, and the Queensland Reds rugby team has a koala as its mascot. The platinum koala and Australian silver koala coins feature the animal on the reverse and Elizabeth II on the obverse. The drop bear is an imaginary creature in contemporary Australian folklore featuring a predatory, carnivorous version of the koala. This hoax animal is commonly spoken about in tall tales designed to scare tourists. While koalas are typically docile herbivores, drop bears are described as unusually large and vicious marsupials that inhabit treetops and attack unsuspecting people, or other prey, that walk beneath them by dropping onto their heads from above. Prince Henry, Duke of Gloucester, visited the Koala Park Sanctuary in Sydney in 1934 and was intensely interested in the bears. His photograph, with Noel Burnett, the founder of the park, and a koala, appeared in the Sydney Morning Herald. After World War II, when tourism to Australia increased and the animals were exported to zoos overseas, the koala's international popularity rose. Several political leaders and members of royal families had their pictures taken with koalas, including Queen Elizabeth II, Prince Harry, Crown Prince Naruhito, Crown Princess Masako, Pope John Paul II, U.S. President Bill Clinton, Soviet Premier Mikhail Gorbachev and South African President Nelson Mandela at the 2014 G20 Brisbane Summit, hosted by Prime Minister Tony Abbott. Many world leaders including Russian President Vladimir Putin and U.S. President Barack Obama were photographed holding koalas. The event gave rise to the term, Koala Diplomacy, which then became the Oxford Word of the Month for December 2016. The term also includes the loan of koalas by the Australian government to overseas zoos in countries such as Singapore and Japan, as a form of soft power diplomacy. Like the panda diplomacy practiced by China.